Hello, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of episode 1, season 2 of Let's Talk with Brian Ross. If you're here from my previous videos when I talked about Andrew Yang and politics, you're going to really like this new season coming up. Just to give you a recap before, once that season ended, I moved on to a show called Tech Topical, which was done at Make School. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check those episodes out. But this season is going to be the spiritual successor to both season 1 of Let's Talk and also Tech Topical. And we are kicking it off with something that I've been doing an absolutely insane deep dive over the past few weeks over, and that is non-fungible tokens, NFTs. I'm sure you're that smart tech friend you have that's always like a little bit out there, they're into NFTs. And if you're wondering what an NFT is and kind of what makes them so special, there's a lot of resources on YouTube about that. And today we're going to get maybe a little bit into a lower level and talk about kind of the magic behind NFTs. And to do that, I brought in someone that posted a Twitter thread that there's some Twitter threads that immediately make you kind of stop and they cause you to think about something. It's almost like you're throwing a bone to a dog and the dog kind of stops what it's doing. It finds the bone and it has to figure that bone out before it can do anything else. And that was what that Twitter thread was. And it talked about this issue of what I would really consider to be the magic behind NFTs. And I had never really thought about NFTs in this way before, and I never really understood the utility of them, or even I think even farther in on a higher level, even about blockchain in general and the magic behind it. And there's this issue around composability, and we are going to get into it right now. And I'd like to introduce to you our expert guest, Sank Kulshreshtha. Thank you for coming on the show, Sank. I'm really excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think all of what you said, that's totally why I'm like really excited about crypto.
That's fantastic. So if you don't know what NFTs are, could you give us, I guess, like what would be the easiest way to explain what these things are without making the whole video about that? Because you can really talk about quite a lot.
Yeah, you can always go down the rabbit hole, but the way that I like to think about NFTs is that they are a way to transfer anything of value to someone else. And that thing is represented as a digital token. And it's unique. It's not like a dollar where $1 is equal to another dollar. It's something that there's this one thing and that's the only way to represent it. So I think a good example of an NFT is something like, I think one of the early use cases was tokens in digital games, right? So It's like, I think a lot of gamers are very familiar with trading things online. So you'll start to see like NFTs are representing those things online. And then a lot of people are trying to bring real world assets onto NFTs and they trade those. So there's some really interesting things going on, but basically it's a way to trade something that you find valuable.
Very interesting. And what's your, if you don't mind me asking, what got you interested in NFTs? Like, what's your background kind of coming into this world?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that personally, I started off as a software engineer. Like I studied information systems. I'm entrepreneurial. I've been creating products from 0 to 1 for like my whole career, essentially. So I really like when I see something that is as exciting as like crypto, the possibilities and the things that people are building on top of it, I think it just blows my mind. So I guess that's like my background and how I just got into crypto in general.
It seems to me as if, I mean, I was around in 2017 with the whole, I guess, really one of the first mainstream crypto rushes. I mean, there were other times and periods before, but for me, 2017 was just such a crazy time period. And the one thing that was in the back of my head the whole time was, what is the actual real use case for this? Because Ethereum had come out and I had heard of this idea that you could build things on the Ethereum network, but I had no idea what that really meant, or even how you would do it. Like, what do I download Ethereum? Do I code? And I didn't really understand what all of that meant. And then now with these NFTs, it seems like to me, this is the first, I mean, there's been other use cases, especially in big industries, they're starting to use blockchain technologies, but this is kind of the one that seems the most fun. And it seems like the one that's getting the most attention and bringing the, besides Dogecoin, I mean, it's bringing probably the most attention to the space in general, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of the big use cases. I would consider like DeFi, NFTs, and DAOs as like the first like real big use cases that are just starting to explode on the scene. It's interesting because I think I have an email that I sent to my sister in like 2011 when I first heard about Bitcoin, and I was like, oh, this thing is interesting. Like, we should check it out. And basically like, and then I forgot about it. And then in 2013, it was like it started to, that was like one of the earlier bubbles. And then like I got excited about it because I dove into it and I realized, hey, there's a lot of potential here. People are talking about the potential way back in the day. I think you're starting to see these use cases being used through the blockchain, but I think back then there were like few champions, like Andreessen Horowitz. He was like a leading VC, a person that I respected. He created Netscape. And he was saying, hey, this is the future. So when someone like that says that's the future, my ears perk up and I listen, right?
For sure.
So I think Fred Wilson as well, he was an early investor. So I think like that sort of drew me into it. And it's cool to see like, sure, it's been around a decade, but now you're starting to see the use cases really, really like being used. So there's like billions of dollars locked up in DeFi. There's NFTs exploding onto the scene. So I think the growth is just going to be there for a while.
I remember sitting there in 2011. I was like in high school, where I just left.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, I kind of want to buy some of this Bitcoin thing because Silk Road was still around and I was checking all that out. And I tried to buy some. It was so hard to figure out. I just gave up and I couldn't do it. And then, here we go years later. And now it's so much easier to do, which is really good that this whole space has become much more accessible. And I want to ask you, I want to get to kind of one of the things that's so exciting that makes blockchain different from maybe other different types of technologies, especially in the types of use cases that we're seeing. And this is what your Twitter thread was about, which, by the way, I'll link it in the description. Make sure you go check it out because I think it's a good read. I liked it. I retweeted it. That's the biggest compliment you can give on Twitter. But I wanted to get into this issue of, do you call it composability? How do you say it? I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, so I guess like it's this thing called composability, and it's a concept in software engineering where basically like you can build things on top of each other. In crypto, people are talking about it as like, they call it composable money Legos, right? So I think a good analogy that people often use in software engineering is like that of like a builder or like someone who's building a house, right? So like I think the money Legos thing applies here too. So if you're building a house, it's nice to have bricks that you can just sort of stack on top of each other and you're not like recreating things. Imagine if you could just kind of put a wall rather than having to build a wall. So I think that people are, that's way easier. So that's what we're starting to see with DeFi, and basically it's a way for developers, entrepreneurs, engineers to build on top of the work that other people have already done. It's a way for things to integrate easily with each other, so you're not starting from scratch all of the time. And that's really exciting because that's why you're starting to see innovation like go from like 0 to 100, whereas the current financial industry is like, everyone has their own proprietary formats. If I want to build something on top of Bank of America, I can. But if I want to build something on top of an ERC20 token, I can. So this like permissionless innovation is what's unleashed through like composable money Legos.
Yeah, and even if you could build on the Bank of America network, you probably wouldn't want to because it's all in these old legacy systems and no one knows what the heck is going on. Whereas contrast that traditional finance with this DeFi world, this world that has ingrained, I guess, not even in the technology, but it's sort of in the culture, this idea of composability where anyone can maintain anything. And it's fascinating to see just the type of, I've been I've been thinking about this like from a product manager standpoint, and I'm just thinking like, well, how important is Scrum and Agile in this open source world? How are these people developing it? They're not creating user stories. They're just going out and maintaining these systems. And the whole space has become, I mean, you're a professional engineer. I mean, the space has become rather robust, I would say, especially over the past few years, like just with the frameworks people can use and the libraries that are kind of out there now.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're seeing like the open source ethos actually like leads to better products. Like a lot of people don't know this, but like Linux is used way more than like Windows or Mac, right? Most of the servers, everything is running Linux. And the reason is because it's open source. So it's like you're capturing the minds of almost the whole world, whoever wants to contribute in a way. And you're sort of condensing that into like a software that people can use. So I think crypto unleashes that same spirit where like a lot of these protocols, a lot of these applications, they're open source. So me as a developer, I can just go in, read the code, and I'm like, oh, I can integrate it with it this way. I don't need to have a partnership deal. I don't need to have like a sales team, which is what I would have to do if I was integrating with Bank of America or like, other banks in the traditional world.
Oh, it'd be a whole thing. Yeah, it wouldn't you would have to yourself be a large institution, some B2B sort of thing. Yeah, it just wouldn't happen. And
Yeah.
I want to drill down on this idea of composability. So you said and you mentioned earlier like money Legos. So what does this actually mean, like I guess on a low level? So someone creates, let's say a blockchain application, right? And then I can build on that. Can I take their code base and then could I make a product and sell it commercially? Do you have any insight into how like that whole thing works? Because that's very interesting.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that like I guess common money Legos within crypto. One is like a protocol standard, which is what you see with ERC20, which is what most tokens are made of, or the NFT standard. So these are like formats that people sort of follow and then you can integrate easily. Another way is like just the nature of open source makes it so that anyone can sort of look at someone else's code, even copy it, and then do something else on top of it. So that's something. So it's like you can still build on top. So for example, Uniswap. Uniswap's one of the most popular like automated money markets, right? But then there's Sushi Swap, Pancake Swap. There's a bunch of other like AMMs that people are integrating with, or not integrating with, they're using. And the way those ones were developed was someone took Uniswap's code, they forked it, and they just tweaked some parameters, and then now you have a whole different like ecosystem. So that's one way to build on top of something. It's just open source, you can build on top of it. Another way is ERC20, like the protocol standards, which is like now that there's a standard way that things are defined, it's kind of like an electrical socket, right? Anything can plug and get electricity from an electrical socket. So like if things are structured a certain way, anyone can integrate with this with a bunch of tokens. So that's sort of what different protocol standards are making it easy to do. So I think, so the first way is the token standards. Second way is just forking a protocol and building on top of it. And then the third way is just like built-in ways to integrate, right? So a lot of these people like Uniswap are saying, hey, like you can use me in this way. Like you can contribute to my liquidity pool. Here's how you do it. You can do this. So then other people are building on top of these applications. Like say I'm an investor and I want to put my money somewhere and earn a return. I don't know what Uniswap is. I don't care, but maybe someone else creates a front end which lets you do that, and they get a cut of the revenue, and then the investor gets a lot of the proceeds. So you'll see like people integrating in very unique ways, and that's just like a tip of the iceberg with the examples I'm giving. I think like you'll see some crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, that's been something that's been blowing my mind is the amount of freedom I think that you get in this space when you start developing in this Ethereum crypto blockchain ecosystem. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And it's not even just the technology anymore. I mean, the NFTs themselves are you wouldn't think so, but they're composable. They have the same attribute of composability. And what I've been seeing with the NFTs on OpenSea is that people, once you buy that NFT, you can use it in your own artwork. You can make a derivation of it, or some sort of a derivative version of it, maybe a zombie version of it, and then release it. And that's all completely, kosher, at least within that community. And that's something that I would have never would have even dreamed about, this idea of this being a use case, like an artistic use case. If I buy this token, if I buy this NFT, not only do I have it as a collectible, but now I also have the rights to it, so I can reuse it in my own stuff if I want to. That's a real
Yeah,
huge game
yeah, yeah.
changer.
Yeah, for sure. It transfers some rights to you. And like with the NFT use case, it's kind of like you can, there's also like they're doing some fun stuff where like crypto kitties, you can breed them and then out comes like this other crypto kitty that you can then sell. So like the NFT comes with rights associated with it. I think in the future you'll see real world use cases like transferring a house that gives you certain rights. So that could be represented as an NFT, and you can have a marketplace for selling houses pretty easily. So yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of ways you can go with this. And there's also like, for example, you said OpenSea was selling NFTs, but the cool thing about like almost the composable money Lego aspect of NFTs is that now I can create another front end. Say I don't like
Mhm.
OpenSea. I'm an entrepreneur. I think there's a different market out there. Maybe they don't support Hindi or some language that I want them to
Sure.
support, right? So I can create the front end, and now any NFT can be sold on my platform, and I don't need permission to sell these things because somewhat it's done in an open protocol way, and that's huge. There are no more gatekeepers now. Anyone can sell an NFT, anyone can buy it, anyone can create marketplaces, and there's really cool incentives being strewn out to do these things.
Yeah, that part is just absolute. I think that when you said composability and I started thinking about NFTs, I was like, wow, that's it right there. That's the use case. If someone asks, why would I use blockchain? Well, composability. That's at least one reason why you might. You can build on something that already exists. And I wanted to ask you, now this is a bit of a philosophical question, Sank, and I'm not sure, I'd hate to get you in trouble with all the, the crypto people can be, but I wanted to ask you about this idea of open source in the decentralized world, because everyone, it seems, in the initial stages of this crypto world and this crypto craze, it seemed to me from the outside looking in to be heralded in by, I don't know, the same people who are really into Ron Paul, or by people who are really into issues around privacy, or into issues around decentralization, getting away from big banks and having that power distributed kind of across systems. And kind of what has been happening is that with this composability and like you said, anyone being able to create a front end, or anyone to being able to create like a brand or a centralized place for this crypto activity to occur, a lot of people have problems with that, as if that's sort of going against the original, I don't know, maker's vision, or the original community's vision. I don't know whose vision it is, but someone had the idea. And I was wondering where you landed on this, because on the one hand, it would be nice to have everything decentralized, I guess, on paper or in theory. But then on the other hand, I would also like a front end that has an easy to use UX and UI, which is I love the open source community, but I don't know. They have a hard time with good UX UI sort of projects. And I'm curious where you sort of land on that issue of decentralization and the current trend of applications that are being built, unless you have a completely different take on it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's a question of our times, right? Because I
Yeah.
think even the government is trying to figure out, okay, what do we think about this? How do we encourage innovation while still making sure all the bad stuff doesn't get through? And these are real questions that I think that we're gonna grapple with as a society. I will say that, like, if you look at the early history of the internet, The technology was actually there for decades before, but it blew up in the 90s, right? So
Hmm.
why did it blow up at that time? There was actually like a legislation that I think was passed in like 92 or something, where it suddenly said, okay, there's this network now. Before it was regulated so that it wasn't open to commercial activity. Suddenly they said,
Hmm.
okay, now it's open for commercial activity. That was it. The technology had been there for decades. So that flipped the switch, and then suddenly people could start using this network. Um, and I mean, we've seen where the internet has gone over the decades. I don't need to tell you how amazing of a transformation that's been for society. But I
Internet.
think like, yeah,
What's
right.
that? My bad. Go
So
ahead.
like and that and I think a lot of the early users were these sort of like anarchists, people who are just like kind of, you know, thinking about the freedom aspect of things. But I think really cool use cases that benefit society emerge as well, right? So I would say the original ethos, yes, it has that culture, but I think you're going to see like a lot of a lot of very legitimate use cases that really benefit humanity come forward. And there are ways to participate in the network in like for institutions like fire blocks. They're doing something where like a lot of institutions they have like KYC requirements and things like that. So they're almost creating like a segregated decentralized network. So you can almost, as a user, you can choose what you want to do. And I think having that optionality is great, because right now I feel like I'm locked into using this old school traditional banking system, and I want out. I want options, and I think that this gives people more options. So that's sort of my general take on it.
Yeah, I gotta write that down because I want to come back to that issue of this sort of DeFi world versus traditional finance world, because they don't really play too nice together. But before I get there, I want to ask you, I've always been wrestling with this issue and I've never really found a compelling answer to it or a good answer to it. I've heard people talk about it, but I've never left feeling sort of like, yeah, that's the system we should use, or that's the process, or that's a good way of looking at it. And I've been thinking, like, if someone were to put some illicit material on a blockchain, because you can put a sound or a picture, and there's a lot of pictures that could be illegal. So if you put an illegal picture on the internet and it's in a decentralized world, that picture's there forever, right? Like you're not going to be able to do anything about it. But then if you have a centralized system, like if it's on OpenSea, like OpenSea could do something about it. And if you had this entire decentralized world, and it will happen if you can do it, people will do it, and people put illicit pictures on there, and we live in decentralized world. It seems like that's sort of giving some Cassius belly to the big institutions out there. Like it gives a justification for war against these two systems. And I'm wondering if it has to be like that. So while I appreciate sort of the decentralized utopia that is people kind of want, I'm trying to figure out if that world is better than the world that we live in sort of right now with this hybrid model. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that you're right in that if people are given these tools, some of them will not use it for the right reasons, and like a lot of societies will sort of that's totally like a way that I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't want it to be used in that way. So I
Yeah.
think like there are ways sort of to combat that, I would say. So it's like OpenSea, for example, if they're selling NFTs, they can be responsible and filter NFTs that they think are inappropriate, right? Um, and then I think that it's not one of the benefits of doing it in this way, even if okay, people are going to do bad things, it might be better for them to do it in like a completely auditable way, right? So right
Mm,
now, most illicit activity is being done through the US dollar, for example, and that's tougher to track than cryptocurrencies. So I think like regulatory agencies actually love when people use crypto, because that's way easier to track and track down the thieves. So we're still going to need law enforcement. We're still going to need
hmm.
people to investigate what's going on. I actually think that having things in a public, accessible, transparent way actually makes it easier for us to find the bad guys. So I don't think it's necessarily mutually incompatible. I think it gives us more tools. And there is a trade-off if like, hey, like 50% of people are just doing like the wrong
Yeah,
things with
right.
this. I think that's terrible. That's bad. But I don't think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing like 99% being used for like this amazing things that'll uplift society, democratize access to financial instruments. Like we're very privileged in our, at least like, you know, where I'm in the US, you're in the US as well. We have a modern financial system. Lots of people, they can't trust their governments to actually look out for their own interests. And
Right.
this provides them, Bitcoin likes to call it plan B, which is funny, but it does provide people options that, you know, we're already very lucky and fortunate to have.
I just got it. Plan B, B for Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's pretty
funny.
good. Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was I think it's great that you brought that up because I was thinking about that the other day and that the fact that you can track transactions because eventually, you know, the true anonymous currency might just be the regular cash dollar. It's kind of almost, I don't know, for me, it's kind of strange. Like I have these dollar bills and I'm not I use cards so much and then everything else I'm buying with crypto and then I don't know what to do with $6, you know. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to almost antiquated that these pieces of paper, you know, mean so much. It's very, very interesting. And now I can circle back to that issue we were talking about earlier with the banks and the decentralized because it seems like they haven't meshed well yet. They don't play together. These aren't the same systems. And I say this because I just had the most frustrating time trying to transfer money into Coinbase and then send that to a wallet and then spend the Ethereum. Because if you do it with a bank transfer, you're just going to sit there forever and wait. And you have no idea where the money is. You don't know what the process, how long it's going to take. And then if I go into the crypto world and I do all my stuff and I make a whole bunch of money and I want to transfer back into the bank, well, it's another few weeks. And it's so strange because obviously it doesn't have to be that way because crypto can
No.
transfer money across any border, you know, not instantly, but you know, as fast as you can get it. And we're still stuck with this. I have to wait a week for what exactly to happen with my Wells Fargo check to clear. You know, it's just sort of those one of those weird things. And who do you think is going to adjust to who? Do you think DeFi is going to adjust to the banks or the banks going to adjust to DeFi? Someone has to adjust, I think.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question. Like if you look at how banks are, how they operate right now, like why did it take you 5 days for your funds to settle before you could transfer your Ethereum out because you
Because they're
used a bank
lazy.
transfer?
Is that why?
Well, no, I actually
Oh,
think
okay.
if you look at the history of it, I mean, like maybe they're just, but I think there's much more to it. So like right now, what these banks are doing is they have the shiny front end. Everything looks like it's instant, but in the back is like this really old, archaic like thing that moves at snail's pace. So like an ACH transfer, which is what you might have done, like
Yep.
what the banks are doing is they're literally sending each other like CSVs, like spreadsheets, and then they're emailing it to each other on like an unsecure, or they're using FTP, and then they're doing that, and then they verify transactions, and they have sometimes they even have people manually go through things. So
Oh,
it's like this very
no.
old school like multi-day process that they're doing on the back end. The reason they haven't had to innovate is because there hasn't been competition, and I think crypto kind of brings that competition to the forefront. So whoever can withstand the heat, I think will be the one who's playing ball. So you're starting to see some interesting, like more innovative firms getting into the space. I would say I think that their head still isn't like fully wrapped around DeFi and things like that, but you're starting to see some participation, which is cool.
It's kind of a little bit strange to me because I have a little bit of an inside window into, I guess, how big corporations are doing it. I'm at a big four consulting firm right now, interning, and I get to, you know, see kind of all the cool different projects, talk to the seniors. And I was talking today to them about kind of like what blockchain looks like at scale for big institutions. And I don't know if this was from a lack of knowledge, but for like me, like I don't know if it's just me, but it seemed as if the applications that businesses are talking about are kind of just dancing around the issue of true decentralization or true integration. It seems more like let's take this existing business process we have and then just slap it on the blockchain, and then we can tell shareholders that we're investing into blockchain technologies, and that might be a good thing to do instead of reworking entire business processes. And I think that that is kind of what I was trying to figure out, like who's going to move to what direction. The business processes have to change if, like you said, the competition just gets to a point where you have to adjust. Decentralized lending is coming, decentralized money transfer is coming. Something's going to have to give at some point, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, some companies aren't going to do well. Probably the companies that you were just describing who are operating under that philosophy. But I think there is, like, for example, there's this bank called Current, which is kind of geared towards younger people, and I think a lot of people are using it. I think they have over 1 million users, and basically they're integrating with Akala, Polkadot, and Chainlink, and they're going to offer users a way to I think over time like earn an interest on their money, but on the back end they're actually like staking or doing like participating in these DeFi protocols, which is really going to be really cool when they release that. So they've announced these partnerships, and I think honestly, when your bank is giving you like 0.5% interest rate and people are seeing like, you know, 4%, 5%, or like if you're more risky, 20% on your US dollars, you're going to see demand for that. And the companies that are listening to their customers are going to be the ones, there's going to be a ton of interest, I would say. And whoever can innovate will get there. Current, I'm excited for what they're going to do. And there's going to be larger and larger banks who want to integrate with that.
Yeah, why in the world why would I even do it any other way? Why would I have cash sitting in my bank account, sitting there losing value to inflation, when I could hold Ethereum, which, you know, it's going to give me at least 4%. I mean, now the reason you don't do it is because of the, you know, the pricing fluctuations and the instability. But, you know, if everyone kind of is into the game, that might stabilize the situation. And eventually, at what point does the opportunity cost get too expensive to ignore a 4% or like the insane 20%? Like, you know, you're going to have to think about how you can sort of shift your capital allocation so that you're not being completely left out of the dust. I mean, why, if I'm a big institution, at what point do I start looking at, you know, running my own trusted nodes to make sure our transactions personally can clear faster? Just kind of like how big tech companies work on open source libraries because they use the open source library, and, you know, we need it to work better, so let's just send some of our engineers to make it better. And I think that might hopefully shift in kind of like a paradigm shift where now crypto is in, like, I guess, I hate to say it this way, but I guess playing with the big boys, you know, in the big leagues. And I just hope that transition happens easily rather than the alternative of bank versus crypto, and only one can win, this zero sum money transfer game.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a bank versus crypto. Like, for example, one of the big reasons that banks didn't get involved back in the day is they're very risk averse. Actually, when I was trying to buy crypto in 2013, they were shutting people's bank accounts for like just like trying to you know, participate in this economy. And I think they've come a long way since then. But more recently, there's been this regulation in December of last year, and that basically allowed banks, made it legal for them to participate like using USDC. So basically the OCC, which kind of governs these currencies, they passed something saying, hey, like, you're allowed to participate in USDC. So that was in December. It's only been like half a year since then, and I think that like people are just starting to wake up to, banks are just starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, we can actually start using this thing. So Visa, they're starting to use USDC. They're running beta tests where they can like actually settle using that on their network. So I think you'll see innovative companies using it. And it's just the beginning. I think Jeremy Allaire from Circle, he's doing, he's a really good guy to listen to. he's doing a lot of interesting stuff and working with regulators and making sure that like the industry is moving forward with the existing finance
I
system.
don't know if you have any insight into this, but isn't that similar to what Ripple said they were trying to do?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who
I know.
okay, so I'm
I know.
opinionated, so I'm gonna I'm gonna throw out my opinions on there. So
Hit
it's
me.
like there's a lot of projects that are gonna say a lot and they're gonna promise the world, and the promise is often better than the product, right? So I think that with Ripple, they were telling people one thing, but in reality, people weren't actually using it. I think I think that we're gonna see who's actually getting usage and traction in the long run. My opinion is that Ripple hasn't been able to deliver on that promise yet, and I think USDC is starting to be used in different blockchains as well. So
Yeah, USDC seems like it's going to kind of win the stable coin wars, I guess, because there's been a few projects trying to do that, but USDC just seems like the easiest, most straightforward way to do it, right? That's what people are going to use.
As in like, okay, so I think Tether has currently more usage than USDC. I guess regulated institutions, they're using more USDC, but in general, the DeFi economy is using a lot of Tether.
Oh,
and
weird.
that,
Okay.
yeah. And I think it's because it's been around much longer. It was like, it didn't really wait for legislation. It was just like, hey, we're gonna do this. And I think their accounting practices and they're not as transparent as USDC. So we'll see what people eventually go to, but I think it's still TBD who's going to win out of that.
I guess I confused myself because you go on some sites and they use the two like interchangeably. And so I thought, oh, okay, I guess they're the same. But
yeah,
no, they're different. Okay.
The stable coin that's actually like the most decentralized is DAI. So if you're interested in like, that's fully decentralized, they have really fascinating tokenomics and incentives to sort of make that system work. But that's a cool stable coin. I would definitely check out if you're into this subject.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it, but I haven't looked into it. The last thing I was trying to learn about was the sushi swap, and I know we talked about that a little bit earlier. And I see that we have enough time, so I do want to get your opinion on one more thing, and that is kind of, I think, what a lot of people are, let's call it what it is. A lot of people are at the show for this one song, and that song is buying something and then selling it later for a lot of money. And the vibe to me seems to be, when I've been thinking about this NFT space, my takeaway so far has been that everything that is being created, like especially things like the low effort punks or the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Bored Bananas and all these crazy different NFTs out there, it seems as if people are taking the attitude of, we are early, we know that you mainstream culture and institutions are going to be doing this in like 10 years, and we know that we are writing history, so we can do literally whatever we want because there's no rules, and whatever we do is going to be part of the story. So let's just do the most ridiculous thing, or let's just have as much fun with it as we possibly can, and let's see where history takes us. And there's a lot of, I guess, I hate to say this, I don't say this in a negative diminutive sense, but a lot of rampant speculation on NFTs, that they're going to buy them now and just wait for 10 years later when there's millions of people here because they're going to want to buy one of these. Do you share the same optimism of people in the NFT space, or in this alternative coin or obscure coin space where everyone is going to be on this in a few years? It just makes sense to buy everything because it's all going to go up in value because it's new and it's shiny and it's the wave of the future. Do you think that is how that might play out, or do you have maybe a different take on it?
Yeah, so my take on the space in general is, it's kind of like if you were an early stage investor for startups, right? There's a lot of potential companies that are like looking hot. There's like, think about if you're investing in like 98. And I think majority of them will probably like go to zero over time, but there will be some winners, and those winners will do really well. So I'd consider the NFT space similar, where like a lot of your bets aren't going to work out. Well, some people, they really know what they're doing, or they're betting on more sure things. So there are ways to do well, obviously, in the investing game, but consider it like you're investing in early stage startups, and we don't know who the winners are yet. I am very optimistic about the industry in general, because I think that every time like the internet almost comes into a new industry, they increase the value, the market cap of that whole like industry almost, right?
Mhm.
So it's like I think similar with NFTs, it's NFT artwork is probably going to be larger than the current artwork that's out there. And then also in general, like NFTs are more than just art. They're going to bleed into so many other industries. I think Andreessen Horowitz, he talks about like how software is going to eat the world. I think blockchain is going to eat the world. So you're going to see it cut into every single industry, NFTs being one really valuable use case.
I had never understood the thinking behind collectibles, because every time I tell someone about NFTs, and this isn't just like regular boomers. I mean, I'm talking to like engineers or people who took the same blockchain class that I did. So they know about the space. They know what a blockchain is. They know which color has the most RAM. They know everything you can know about a blockchain. But then I tell them about these NFT collectibles, and they're like, why would I buy that JPEG, when I could just look it up online? And I don't think people, even in the technical world, have really caught on to, I think, probably this cross industry knowledge that is needed. And that is sort of the mindset around collecting in general, that the thing itself is the thing that has value, and the thing that has value is the market around it, and sort of shared perceptions of it, and that prices can be wild and fluctuate, or they can be pretty stable, because no matter how long you wait, the price of a Bored Ape is not going to fluctuate down to what you could get for $20 today and $20,000 tomorrow. Those fluctuations don't exist like that, like they maybe would on the extreme low end scale, 0.00001 of this new coin that came out, and you can be a millionaire overnight. I think that there's still a huge, I don't even know if we've gotten to the early adopter stage yet with these new developments in the space. It feels like we're still kind of, that chart I'm talking about where it goes like up and then it goes right back on down. The people at home know what I'm talking about, of course. And it starts, and you have like the visionaries at this tail, and then you go to the next section. I guess in statistics it would be the next standard deviation, and you have the early adopters, and then you have mass market, and then you have like your grandmom at the end, the people coming low. It feels to me, yeah, it feels to me like we're more in the visionary stage. Do you think we're farther along than that, or maybe at different stages for different things? I don't know.
Yeah, I think people have sort of shown the graph similar to like how the internet grew. I think where if you draw an analogy to that, we're at in like, I would say 97, 98. So it's like, before the dot-com boom in a way. So I think we're still pretty early. You're gonna see a lot of cool things come out. In regards to like, I think NFTs and how prices are, I think a lot of people are sort of wondering what's going to stick around and what isn't. I think if you look at a lot of the coins in the past, like 5 years ago, a lot of them aren't in the top 50 now. So you'll see there'll be a lot of churn, but then eventually we'll get to something that sticks, I think, in various parts of the industry. So yeah, we're very early.
Probably your best bet is just to buy a bit of everything, and just like a venture capitalist would, and your one is going to more than make up for your 99 losses. At least that's the idea behind it, I think. But I think that's very, this whole space is just so fascinating to me. And I don't know what the future holds per se for the space, but I just know that it's going somewhere. And for me, my my investment decisions lately, especially with the world of traditional finance, my investment kind of rules of thumb have gone out the window, and I've replaced them with this idea of meme energy. Whatever people are talking a lot about, and whatever seems to have this 4chan-esque meme energy behind it, it just makes sense to don't even ask questions, just hop on and see where you go. And you're going to get it wrong sometimes, but my goodness, do you have the potential to do something crazy there? And I think there's one other thing I want to talk about and get your perspective on, and then I don't want to keep you all day. I could have you here for like 3 or 4 more hours. Talking to you has been so
Oh,
fascinating.
dude. Yeah, this is great.
But I this is, do you think, the first ever big tech movement that everyone can have a piece of the pie of? Because you had the early internet in like the 90s, like you talked about. And especially in the 90s, I couldn't just go on Robinhood and buy some Yahoo stock. I had to like call a broker or something. And it was a whole thing to get some stock. Really hard for anyone to participate. And then in 2011, with the whole big Facebook and the Twitter and the social media rise and how that changed the whole game, and iPhones and all that, I could not participate in that unless I knew how to code and build apps on the App Store. Then I could participate in it, but there was a big barrier before you got there. It would take at least, I don't know, a month before you could like code an app, and then you have, I don't know, like a catch the apple game, something really simple. But that's all that there was back. Remember early
Mhm.
apps? It would be like a beer drinking app, and you just tilt it and then the water. So you have that. And then I think that this is the first time with these NFTs that literally anyone can potentially partake. Let's call it 2017 to like 2022. Like this space is one of the only spaces where new technology has come out, and everyone has the chance to economically enrich their lives in a way that the bank can't stop you, someone else can't stop you. As long as you can find a way to buy some Ethereum, you can partake in this sort of growth. And we've seen the Bitcoin millionaires, the Ethereum millionaires, the Dogecoin millionaires. Do you think that that's a am I right about that cultural observation? What do you think about that?
Oh, 100%. I think that's almost the name of the game. That's what makes it special. I think something that we're all excited to be a part of. If you see a lot of these NFTs, they're being created by artists from around the world. It's not like, some art curator has to deem you good and then you're going through like, certain exchanges. It's like, no, like someone liked your stuff and now they're buying it. So you're seeing art kind of blow up in that way, with creators from around the world. And then you're going to see people who are investing, that like I didn't have access to a lot of opportunities, and I know people do. Other people, like if you're in certain social circles, if you're in certain networks, you totally have access to opportunities. I think one of the beautiful things about crypto is exactly what you mentioned. Like anyone has access to it. It's open. It's permissionless. Yeah, that's totally where I think that the industry shines.
Yeah, I think that's really the thing that's bringing the energy for it too. I mean, that's the fact that everyone, and this is kind of what I love so much about the crypto community. And I'm, I can be a little opinionated myself sometimes, but for me, when I looked at maybe the 2010s decade, or the 2010 2011 internet, and it was a very noble thinking. I think everyone thought that we could connect the world, and then the world would be much, much better because now we're all connected. And I'll leave it to the viewers at home to make their opinions on if that happened or not. But it seems like this culture is very open and honest about what it is that they want to happen. They want to get Lambos, they want to have mansions and get a whole bunch of money with this magic internet thing. And I kind of like the honesty, just like I kind of like the Wall Street Bets version of honesty. No, I'm making this art so I can sell it to you for a lot of money. And that's something that really most artists haven't talked about or said, in public. They've had to sell their stuff for money and then feel bad about it because it should be about the art, man. So I think this is
Mhm.
great for society.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is like, yeah, sure, there is that community, but there's so many, like you can almost choose. I think a big part of crypto is just choosing your community, right? So around different tokens, there's different communities that are developing. You'll see like, and there's different memes. I think you keep hitting on this like topic of memes, but I think that's very powerful. There's like, I don't know if you've seen that Bankless episode with Lucas Burgess, I think, about he wrote a book about the mimetic theory.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I've read
yeah,
articles about that book. I haven't read the book.
okay. It's like blowing my mind, and I think that explains a lot of how these different cultures are developing around crypto. So yeah, and going back to, sorry, this is just like a previous topic that you're talking about, like why are NFTs valuable, or like some people don't get it.
Oh,
I
hit
think
me. We can round it off with that. Why are they valuable? Yeah.
yeah, so I think the people who think that they're valuable, which they clearly are because they're selling for money, that's value in itself. But it's like if you're not, the people who get it, I think, are the people who played like games back in the day where they had virtual goods. Like for example, I played RuneScape, and like there's this valuable thing called party hat, and like I worked my ass off to get a party hat. Like you don't know how hard I worked, and it was a lot of fun. It was a game, obviously, but like I think that like that's why I get it. That's why I get that these NFTs, these collectible items, there's going to be a whole economy around it. So maybe play some games, maybe like, you know, try them out. And then I think Axie Infinity, people are starting to play that. So that might get a lot of people at least understanding like, hey, why can this like virtual good be valuable? Yeah.
I think it's really, that's probably the best advice to give someone. I agree. It'd be really hard to wrap your head around understanding if someone makes a statement like, oh, dude, this NFT, the avatar has 3D glasses. That's such a rare feature, dude. It's worth probably at least 5 Ethereum. Like that statement itself is completely nonsensical to most people. And then I say that to people and they're like, oh, 5 Ethereum. Okay. And then I'm like, do you know how much an Ethereum costs? It's $2,000 right now. It's $10,000. This picture is. And then they start paying attention. They're like, oh, wow. And you can see the same part of their brain that sort of decides, should I buy the lottery ticket or not? Like that part of the brain gets engaged and like, should I be into this? Should I buy one of these bananas? I don't know.
And then it's like, if people that like, for example, CryptoPunks is a great example. If people that you're following are like, hey, CryptoPunks are cool, that's what gives it value. If other people find it valuable. So like, yeah, I think, yeah, if you're following people and they're buying CryptoPunk, dude, they're like worth over 30 grand now. And I want one. I didn't want one before, but now I want one.
I know.
Because I'm seeing other people like have it.
I know, I'm the same way. That's why I'm getting into these check out low effort punks. I've been having a blast with those. I think it's the next wave. Yeah, the meme energy on that. I'll send you a link afterwards, but yeah, if you're watching, I would go on OpenSea and just start buying stuff, not financial advice. I don't know, unless you want it to be. Can I get in trouble for saying that? I hope not. Not financial advice. So, but go on and buy stuff anyway. No, but but that was such, thank you so much for coming on this show today, Sank, and I really appreciate it. I think I've probably already, you've probably forgotten more than I'll ever know about this space, but I've just learned so much from listening to you talk about it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoyed it too, at the people at home. But again, thank you so much for coming on, Sank, and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, we'll keep in touch, and I enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Let's go. Thank you all for watching this kickoff episode, season 2, episode 1 of Let's Talk with Brian Ross. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and then share it on Twitter. Share it to your mom, share it to your friends. I'm sure they're all going to really love this. And who knows, maybe you'll make them all millionaires with your newfound knowledge. I already feel richer. I don't know about you. Anyway, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.